Hello, marketers. Hope you are safe and healthy. I can't thank you enough for giving so much love to the marketing soul. Great Marketers Club is growing, and we are getting strong with the passionate marketers onboarding every day. It is blessing to see all this, and very soon we will be going by the invite-only membership. So those who have not joined yet, please join. You are going to have the best of the marketing community experience ever. Link is in the description. Please subscribe to the channel to stay tuned to the latest learning from the marketing soul. In this episode, we have a marketing veteran with us. He carries a strong 2 decade experience in business development, sales, marketing, and innovation with Britannia Industries, Diageo, Cadbury, and Wipro Consumer Care. An effective communicator, strong analytical skills, awarded as the 50 best marketing and communication professionals by White Page International. Welcome Saurabh Bajaj, marketing head Britannia to hashtag Marketers Lead Talk. Excited to have you as our community mentor.
Thank you so much, Sachin. It's absolutely great to join this part. And yeah, I'm currently heading the marketing for the dairy business with Britannia. So absolutely great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we definitely require the mentors like you who can guide the young professionals and the people to learn, network, and grow. That's the agenda that we have taken at the Marketing Soul. Great. So let's initiate the conversation around, let's have a very basic one. What is your style of marketing?
So, I like to believe that, I'm a back to basics marketeer, and one of the things that has sort of helped me is the fact that, I've had a good balance of sales and marketing in my career. And hence I, like to think about my marketing style as a practical marketeer, right? Where I try to ensure that anything and everything that I do has got effectiveness and sort of a connect with the ground. For example, every single initiative that I would like to do, I don't like to do them without measuring its impact, right? And because I believe the job of marketing is not finally to create something which looks just very good on shelf or screen, but really drives some kind of a business outcome, right? So hence a practical marketer who thrives in driving effectiveness to his approaches is really what I consider my marketing style.
I respect that. In fact, that's the originality that brings in the marketing to actually think of about the sales. So I loved it. Great. Great. So what new trends, now this was the topic that we chosen to discuss in this discussion. So what are new trends of marketing in the COVID-19 times, you think, and what is the way forward for us now?
Sure. So I think, the entire COVID time has been a very disorienting time for most companies and manufacturers, right? Now, whether we see last year, same quarter, or we see even this year, same quarter, moment there is a disruption because of COVID, what tends to happen is that, there's a degree of uncertainty. When there is uncertainty, you often find that, either commodity prices go up or they go down, right? Sales gets paralyzed because either you can go to the market or not. Distribution gets hit. Yeah. So in this aura of uncertainty, one of the first things that you see most brands doing is really pulling out investments, right? And in fact, what I have found very interesting last year is actually those brands which stayed the course and who continued investing actually were the ones that benefited. Yeah. Now, when you invest, there are multiple avenues to invest on, right? And what we have realized in the times of COVID, that some of the standard avenues of investments have got disrupted. Okay. Now, when you would want to invest, you would invest behind fresh programming, right? And last year we realized fresh programming was not happening. So there were reruns of Mahabharata and Ramayana going on. Yeah. The second time that, second place that one would want to invest is in your 360 vehicles, which is things like print, radio, outdoor, right? Now with limited mobility, some of those avenues didn't seem as effective, right? And hence people wondered, beyond TV, where should I invest? Yeah. The third is point of buying. Now point of buying, which is traditionally, area where most marketers wish to invest, it started becoming sort of ineffective because people were taking a few visits to the shelf. This year, I think most of the outlets have started providing home delivery. So suddenly point of buying that does not become a very great way to invest. Yeah. The third is in digital. Sure, there is Facebook and YouTube, but what else? If digital is going, what are the other areas to invest in, right? So I think these were some of the fundamental questions that marketeers had. Yeah, and hence what I was really intrigued to see on how people evolved, pivoted, and how the trends are changing even today, right? So if TV programming got disrupted, we had a lot of brands trying to come onto the Hotstar OTT platforms, right? Because the penetration of smart TVs have risen, right? And I was particularly impressed to see Surf Excel, pivoting from their proposition of Daag Achhe Hain to Daag Ghar Pe Rahenge, right? And they used Hotstar OTT to sort of, show their property. Yeah. Similarly, when you had print outdoor getting disrupted, you had a large growth in digital, right? Especially things like news apps. News apps is a place where a lot of brands started investing in, right? Bollywood releases were stalled, and then you had brands like Vedantu, which took on the sponsorship of Shakuntala Devi with their release on Amazon, right? So that again was a very interesting pivot. When point of buying was getting impacted, brands realized that a lot of business is going to move over to e-commerce. So you suddenly had disproportionate growth in e-commerce, and you had disproportionate focus by marketeers in trying to make the best of e-commerce as a tool, right? And I think all marketeers and manufacturers have now started, fastidiously trying to study what is a line fill, our case fill, our search rankings, and hence really e-commerce marketing has become a lot more of a science. It's moved beyond just what I do once in a while towards becoming a bread and butter of marketing budgets, right? And lastly, as I mentioned, if there was a challenge in the fact that we have already overused a YouTube or a Facebook, where else on digital do I invest? And you suddenly see so many brands coming onto new age digital devices like Spotify, Ghana, podcasts, right? And the interesting part of the learning with these devices is that the same creative unit does not work. An ad which works on TV is inefficient for YouTube because the consumer has got a time of only say 6 seconds before he probably kicks on a skip. Yeah, and hence you need sharper units. You need units which work on mute. You need units which might have text interface with images. Similarly, a radio ad unit does not work on Spotify. Spotify is not about shouting over traffic. Spotify is about making an intense and intimate connection when the AirPod is in the ear of the consumer, right? So hence all these new avenues of marketing have forced marketeers not just to innovate in new media devices, but also in fresh creative units, which makes it effective on these media.
Right, and quite valid ones because behavior is changing. Consumer behavior is not now limited. No, it is majorly into digital, and I mean there is no other scope that where you can buy. I agree absolutely. So let's take in a conversation around the new context I would like to bring into the discussion is about CSR. So CSR with marketing campaigns, do you think are they worth?
It's a very interesting question. And, as I was trying to decode the various pieces of communication that I've seen over the last couple of years, because now we're almost into a second year. And what I realized, from the point of view of the, the rules of communication, right? So one of the first rules that I sort of decoded is the fact that, as consumer behavior changes, new passion points arise, right? So if in-home cooking is today all in the vogue, you'll have a lot of brands trying to make themselves relevant using new consumer passion points. Yeah. At the same time, the consumer expects you to be sensitive, right? And CSR clearly is something that shows brands as being sensitive, right? But at the same time, you have to be relevant. Yeah. Now, a CSR campaign, which is sensitive, but has got nothing to do with the brand or product opportunity, is not really going to drive your business. It might drive some talk value, but it is not something that is going to drive your business ambitions, right? And hence, a brand or a manufacturer needs to keenly examine all of these three questions. One, am I activating a passion point that my TG associates with? Second, am I being sensitive in my communication, or am I just taking on an old conversation? Third, is my initiative relevant to them? Yeah. Now, these are the three touch points. Okay. Now, on the basis of these metrics, one of the brands that did a large campaign, which is linked to CSR last year, was Amazon, right? And Amazon talked about, celebrating their employees, right? Now, they got a lot of positivity, but at the same time, there was skepticism because, there were reports of how Amazon in the US was not even giving the mandatory 7 or 10 days leave for their employees who had COVID, right? So you cannot just make a CSR campaign and then not walk the talk, because the moment you are going into a sensitive space, consumers will be all the more careful to say, are you just doing this for a buzz value, or do you really believe in this? Yeah, and hence, integrity as well as values, right? Authenticity remains the buzzword of what consumers really expect from brands and corporates. So if there is a CSR campaign which is relevant, but it is also authentic, I think you will get the rewards for it. If it is inauthentic and it is done simply because it's the buzz and why don't we do something about it, I don't think it's the right thing to do.
That's right. So, added to the purpose is basically you're recommending while doing the campaigns.
Yes, yes. You should be very clear about it, saying that, does it talk to, the passion points of your consumers, your TG? Is it something which is presented in a manner which is sensitive? Secondly, is it relevant? Yeah. And are you willing to walk the talk? Is it just something which you're doing for a short-term benefit, or is it something that you really believe in from the long term and really have been working toward? Like, for example, I think the beneficiaries or the people who got the most positive vibe during this time were the Tatas. And Tatas, not because of what they did in the pandemic, but what they have always stood for. They have always stood for integrity. It's not that today there is a pandemic, so they need to do something about it. It is something which they have known to have been doing for many years, and they are doing more than that, more than what they have done in the past. Now that's integrity. That's something that you can respect and believe in, but it cannot be a flash in the pan.
That's very right. High regards for it. In fact, the example that you shared. This has another aspect of no discussion also is about responsible marketing. When would we learn this as a marketer? Endorsement by the actors, their punchlines, graphics. This is some area I would like to explore your views onto it. What are your thoughts?
Sure. So, see, I think there are various parts of responsible marketing, right? And it's a very large subject. It can be decoded and coded in many ways, right? And trust me, as much as I would advocate it, at the same time, I would expect, us as marketers to be a little more logical and thought through about it. So, for example, I saw a number of marketers up in arms on the cred campaign, which showed Rahul Dravid as the bully of Indra, right? Now I think it's a campaign that brought a smile to many of our faces. We found it pretty interesting and enjoyable. Yeah. As a marketer, I was skeptical because my question was, what is it doing about educating about the service? Because you got limited money, you have small budgets. Can you shouldn't we actually spend a little more effort in trying to educate people about the service rather than only trying to get eyeballs, right? But at the same time, you had a lot of people saying that, oh, it's unethical because you're showing pain, right? Now, I don't believe in that. I think it was violence for the sake of humor. And I worry if marketers try to be too careful, it'll never go anywhere. You cannot say that violence is bad because it's clearly done for the humorous purpose, right? So hence, as much as we should be sensitive and we should be logical about it, right? And things that I believe in is, for example, marketing to kids. You should not push over consumption of chocolates and high fat things to children. You should be careful about that. Now, that's ethical marketing for me, right? Similarly, ethical marketing for me is, if you know that the way we show our nutritional panels, right? And the way we ensure that everything is, validated by the legal team, because if you have something with regards to the nutritional benefits, right? Now, there are strict guidelines in terms of, how is it talking to the daily allowance of that nutrients. Now, that's all ethical marketing. That has to be done, has to be vetted, very carefully. But at the same time, if the conversation goes the way Mintra went, where there was a local change required because, an activist saw something in it which in my mind was just not there. I think we tend to move into an area which is, trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And I think that's not required.
True that, and appreciate your honest answer on it. And there was anything synthetic in it. So wonderful. So marketing communication during COVID times. I saw many of the campaigns. There were different thoughts that they elaborated on it. So how it is evolved, the marketing communication during COVID times.
Sure. So I think, as we went through various phases of the pandemic last year, and we see some of the repeating this year, I think what has been really effective is about how brands have used the right evolving passion points at that time. So when the pandemic had just sort of initiated or started, I think there's a lot of brands which try to, spur the objective of spreading awareness. So you had even brands like Dove talking about washing your hands. Right. Of course, Lifebuoy and Dettol is something that we all saw, and I think the business benefits that those companies got was phenomenal. Yeah. Again, I think Dabur with relevant products like honey and Chamanprash, right, were able to ride the immunity wave pretty well. Yeah. So that is really the initial phase of the pandemic. Yeah. As people got sort of used to it somewhere around June, July last year, is where people were like, okay, it's no longer new news to me that I need to wash my hands or wear a mask. So stop talking to me about it. I mean, I got it. I've got the message, right? And that's when you had brands like Hershey's talking about, now that you're stuck at home, might as well pamper yourself at home. Right. Or you had Time Pass, one of the chips brands, saying that sitting at home, people might think you're doing time pass, but you're actually saving the world. So it was a nice tongue-in-cheek reply towards staying at home, right? Similarly, Surf Excel said that daag achhe hain, I can't tell you anymore, because your kids are not going to be rolling in the mud for sure for some time, but they will make a complete mess on your walls, and when they do, we are there for you. So daag ghar pe rahenge. I think that was a very intelligent way of being relevant in the times of COVID. Right. Of course, like we talked about, we saw a lot of brands talking about appreciation and gratitude. Yeah, and that was fairly relevant. Yeah. Of course, as we moved almost out of the pandemic somewhere around November, unfortunately the lockdown is back. But around that time, when we felt that we are probably going to start getting back to normal, so there you had a lot of brands talking about the assurance of their safety protocols, right? So you had a Swiggy, or you had a McDonald's or a Domino's talking about the fact that the only hands that are going to touch your food are yours, right? And really upping those standards is something that we saw. Yeah. So that is how I would say communication evolved through the various phases of the pandemic. But I think the one new thing that all marketeers have learned, and which is relevant now, and it has been really relevant for the last year and a half, and not so much before that, is really moment marketing. Now moment marketing is something which was massive in the US, and for the last, maybe 20, 30 years, the biggest campaigns in the US soil have been during the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the baseball playoffs, right? Where all the the entire population of US actually sits together and watches the playoffs, right? And there, a 2-minute ad can cost millions and millions of dollars, right? Now, because all of US had a similar pattern on what they follow, right? Now, our country was never like that. All of our states would be doing different things. In fact, the same festival can be called Baisakhi, Pongal, and what have you in various parts of our country. But I think it's the pandemic that made all of us talk about vocal for local at the same time, which made us talk all about washing our hands at the same time, which made us talk about, vaccines at the same time, right? And, when you have an entire country talking about the same message or the same thought, at that time moment marketing, or having the the creative muscles to turn around campaigns which are very relevant, then become very, very crucial, right? And I think that's a skill that a lot of marketeers have learned from the pandemic, and all of us are trying to use it as we go forward.
So any example you would like to share for moment marketing?
Yeah, so like I said, last year when vocal for local was a buzzword, right? When Modi made that as a buzzword, right? You had a lot of brands suddenly talking about, by the way, hey, we are also local. Whether it is the Tatas or the Godrej, the Daburs, right? And it became a large buzzword on how they all talked about the fact that yeah, we are local, please buy us, right? Now another example of that is and maybe slightly lesser known, but when you had this whole Panama Canal blockage, which happened recently, right? The Suez Canal. So you had so many brands really talking about, trying to use that moment in very creative tongue-in-cheek campaigns, right? So when there is something which happens in the external environment, another example of this, see a lot of brands on their Facebook handles talk about Merry Christmas or Diwali, right? But I think just the number of brands that celebrated Doctors' Day last year was higher than the number of brands which have ever celebrated Diwali or Christmas, right? So I think that's really the whole point of moment marketing, where brands try to hook onto a popular conversation to make themselves relevant.
Interesting, very interesting. Moving to our last leg of our conversation, in the when we initiated the conversation, you mentioned you also map your marketing efforts to the sales ROI and all. So, would you like to recommend some marketing tools which helps to gauge all this and way forward?
So, there are three books that I would like to, recommend to your viewers, right? Now, if you're interested in sales, you're interested in ROI, if you're interested in getting things done, right? Then there's a book by the name of Execution, which I would say is a very good read. Yeah. Now, for any marketer, obviously, Al Rice and Jack Trout are like the Bible of marketing, right? So I've read virtually every book written by Al Rice and Jack Trout, and they really talk about positioning very beautifully, right? So that's something which everybody should read. However, my most famous modern day marketing Bible, really the one book which I would recommend to everybody right now, right, is a book by Byron Sharp. Yeah, it goes by the name of How Brands Grow. Now, how brands grow is fabulous because it actually turns a lot of our well accepted marketing concepts on their head. It actually starts by saying that I don't believe in segmentation or positioning, right? They actually talk about a very scientific approach to marketing where they say it's all about mental availability and physical availability, right? And it's all about empirical ways of doing marketing. So I would say that while I still am a fan of Al Rice and Jack Trout, and at least I believe in positioning and segmentation, but I think Byron Sharp has just opened my eyes towards an even more scientific way of looking at marketing. And when I try to blend both these pieces of literature together, I think that is what, for me, is the most clearest way of trying to decode most of my and other marketing efforts.
Wonderful. So, any software, any recommendation, or will all this and the analytical mind will work? Any software recommendation from your side?
See, I've used a number of interesting softwares, frankly, right? And these softwares have largely been used from the point of view of segmentation, right? Basically, it helps correlate needs versus behavior, right? And many of these software are used by a lot of our research agencies, right? When we do our segmentation or our usage and attitude studies, right? But personally, I don't use any software on a day-to-day basis. On a day-to-day basis, I just rely on the data that my analytical companies bring to me, right? I ask them questions and they're able to cut the data for me accordingly. I personally don't use any software myself.
Okay, so basically, your the maths are given to you by the agency to work around a campaign or something that you require. Is it so?
Yeah, so we have a number of agencies that we deal with. We have a media planning agency called Essence. We have, our own digital agency. So, we get all our ROI, we get all our business metrics, but it's not something that I need to do myself. I would, ask them the questions and I would get the responses through data which they would share with me. So hence, I don't personally use any software myself. It's my partners who use it.
Wonderful, great. Before we go, what are your thoughts on the initiative, the Marketing Soul? You are our community mentor now.
Right. No, it's absolutely brilliant initiative, and congratulations. I mean, my heartiest regards to you. I think it's a really great initiative, and I think it's well required as well because while there is a lot of theoretical constructs that we might get from books and from reading material. But I think what marketers best understand marketing by is when it comes alive for them, and really comes alive through conversations, through listening to people who have had their experiences, and by being able to connect the dots between theoretical marketing versus what marketers have seen in their day-to-day life, right? And hence I think this is a great initiative, and it will be it will really help a lot of marketeers in terms of connecting the dots between the theory and the real life.
Thank you so much, Saurabh for your motivational words, and that was the objective we formed while making the marketing soul. And thank you being with us today. It was a Ganga, I would say, of the marketing concepts that we discussed today. And I'm sure marketers and the community is going to love it, and it is going to have the viral for it, for sure. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely my pleasure. Absolutely great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.